Hey guys, I made a straw crossbody bag using the $2 crocheted hat I bought on clearance a couple of years ago. I found the end and started unraveling it. I rolled it into a ball, and I used a seam reaper to remove the band. I'm not sure what the proper terms for crocheting are, but here's what I did. I used a G or 6 crochet hook. First I placed the string over the hook with the end facing forward. Then I brought the end of the string to the back, wrapping around the longer end. Next I brought the longer end over to the front of the hook and pulled the string through the loop created. I brought the longer end over to the front again and pulled the string through the loop created. This is the first chain stitch. I repeated this 30 times and it should look like a braid. I added another chain stitch to start my row. I wrapped the hook, went through the top loop of the chain stitch, wrapped the hook again, and pulled the string through the braid. Wrap it again and pull the string through all 3 loops. Repeat this with the next chain stitch. When you reach the end, make a chain stitch to start the next row. Then turn it over and repeat the pattern. When you reach the length you want, pull the string completely through the loop. I made a piece with 14 rows for the front of the bag and a piece with 26 rows for the back of the bag. I also made a piece with 6 chain stitches and 47 rows for the side of the bag. I weave the ends of the string throughout the piece before cutting the extra string. I attached the front piece to the side piece, making sure the rows were aligned. I made a slip knot, went through both pieces, wrapped the hook, and pulled the string through both pieces in the loop. I repeated this along the edge. Next, I connected the back piece. Then I realized I could have just used a tapestry needle to sew the pieces together, which is what I did for the pieces coming up. Turn the bag inside out. For the strap, I made 10 chain stitches. Then formed a loop by going through the first loop of the braid and pulling the string through it. I continue making 190 chain stitches. I made another loop with the last 10 chain stitches. I knotted it, weaved the end through the piece, and cut the extra string. Next, I made 2 tabs to hold the strap. Each had 16 chain stitches and 1 row of pattern. I placed a tab through a loop of the strap and sewed the ends together. Then I sewed the piece to the side of the bag. I repeated this with the other tab. You can skip this part if you're using a bead. I made 7 chain stitches and 1 row of pattern. I rolled it and weaved the extra string through it to form a knotted bead. Then I made enough chain stitches to fit around it. I made a loop and attached it to the bottom center of the bag's flap. Next, I attached the knotted bead. I measured all the sides to make a lining for the bag. For the front and back, I made two pieces that were 6.5 inches by 5 1/4 of an inch, marking 1 inch from the top. For the sides, I made two pieces that were 1 1/4 of an inch by 5 1/4 of an inch, marking 1 inch from the top. For the bottom, I made a 6.5 inch by 1 1/4 of an inch piece, and I added a 1/4 inch around the pieces for the seam allowance. I sewed the four sides together, adding a zigzag stitch along the edge so the fabric wouldn't fray. Then sewed the bottom. Next, I folded the top over to the 1 inch mark, folded it over again, then sewed it. You could sew the lining to the bag, but I just left it as is so it could be removable. And here's how it turned out.